Have you heard of Stephen's Sausage Roll? This is a 3D puzzle game that was very influential when it released, but I'm not sure how many people know of it today. It's from 2016, and like, first of all, it's $30, so it almost begs people to go search up other aspects about this game and see, what makes this game so good for how simple it looks and the potato text thumbnail. Sausage-like puzzle games. And I'm going to be showing like a bunch of other different games that were definitely inspired by this one. Now, I could mention the things that this game does that many inspired games have also copied, these things, which I'm not going to read, because those aren't really the relevant things about the game that make it special. To me, the core thing about this game, and how it inspired others, is that the mechanics are grounded in physical interaction, so it feels less artificial, as new mechanics are just interacting with objects in somewhat surprising ways. An example of this is that in World 1, all of the levels are just dealing with sausages with no walls, just to get a sense of the mechanics. The controls aren't even complicated either, it's just moving around and turning this fork, with the goal being to get all the sausages grilled by grilling them on all four sides, and then exiting the level where you came. One clever trick is designing the levels in a way where you don't encounter the mechanics of the trick until later world. So in World 1 of this game, you never see any walls. Then in the first level of the second world, there's immediately a wall in the form of this tree here, and it's showing that you can push the fork into the sausage to grab onto it, stabbing it, and you can also unstab it. And then it shows off how it also locks your player's orientation, and how you can execute like a half swing to nudge an object over, in this case a sausage. And this one tutorial level is actually very efficient with showing how many things this new interaction brings. The games often also use meta elements, like building and using the objects in the game in the meta overworld. I don't want to spoil too much, but the game eventually uses like 3D, like some of the ladders in the hub get used in puzzles, and even the detail of entering a level becomes really, really important later in the game. For an example of the cursed physicality in the game, there's diagonal sausages that work just like normal sausages, but they're diagonal. Now, as I said, this video is going to be more of a compilation about various games inspired by Stephen's Sausage Roll, or similar to it in some way, and one of them is Pipe Push Paradise, which is a game about pushing pipes into their positions to connect the water lines, and you can even, like, rotate the pipes in midair. So the 3D element is in, like, all of the puzzles. There's some clever, difficult puzzles in here, and quite a lot of content. Expect to take, like, 10 to 20 hours on it. I remember beating the game, but there's this post-game DLC that I never actually completed. I definitely recommend it. The same developer eventually made this game called Hiding Spot, which is themed in these vaguely office, bedroom style areas. The trailer doesn't really show anything, but the idea is you can push and pull objects in the room, and you're trying to block yourself in from all angles. So you can see here, there's that. There's the solution. The same developer also made Bonfire Peaks, which is a game about carrying and turning boxes in order to burn a target brown box. Basically putting the brown box over the fireplace. So as you might imagine, the levels are often heavily about stacking boxes for stairs. I played and finished this about 3 years ago, and even though this is a Stephen's Sausage Roll-like, Sausage-like, the physicality is not always there, in my opinion. I suddenly felt like a few levels were significant standouts, but there's a level called On the Ledge that was very satisfying, though. When I played it, there were still some odd bugs, where sometimes boxes could, like, detach or some later mechanic incorrectly, or rotate incorrectly. Unfortunately, there are those kinds of bugs in the game. You maybe wouldn't expect that, but yeah, still, though, this game has quite a lot of playtime, and introduces a fair bit of new mechanics, even though it's not as organic as the original Sausage game. Another puzzle game developer, Dractic and Friends, published and also co-developed Bonfire Peaks, who has developed some other puzzle games that are classics and quite good. Like, I remember playing these two so long ago. These actually came out before Stephen's Sausage Roll. The game A Monster's Expedition, though, is a game that feels most like a sausage-like, because it's a game with, of course, the water, the physicality of pushing trees. There are so many secret yet fully logical interactions involving these tree stumps and rolling logs, and it's all so natural and cozy. For better or worse, the nature vibe means that the levels aren't really that distinct, like they don't have level names or whatever. It's super interconnected, the main mechanic is unique, there's a difficult post-game. Also, the world is really large. Like, you very much could get lost in it. Something kind of awkward is I have not actually finished this game. I mean, I've seen the ending to it, but because of the amount of post-game, it's not really complete, and so I don't have personal closure on some of the interactions that people have even mentioned that are in the game. Just say that the post-game has elements of finding the puzzle is part of the puzzle. Also, the main character is a plush now. Another one of these games is Can of Wormholes, which is another sausage-like, although it does use a snake as its main character, which is arguable considering it's almost like its own genre. I've also done a playthrough of this game, including some custom worlds, but in basically every other respect, it is a sausage-like. It has extensive mechanics, tons of worlds, meta stuff, 3D. The game also has a praised accessibility feature to gain insight, which is basically an easier version of a level. It strongly hints towards the key move of it. The only issue I felt was the edge case interactions of the game are a bit more artificial than Stephen's Sausage Rolls, and there was one point in my playthrough where I was frustrated by one of them. But still, it uses the meta and the 3D well. Another sausage-like, this one is perhaps the most minimalist, because it's really just using cubes that stick to each other in order to get to a goal tile. The same developer also made a Witness-like called Insight. I still haven't done that Witness-likes video, huh? So I expect this game is pretty good at exploring its concept. Note that I am not sure whether it has the same surprise physicality elements like the original Sausage game. It probably shows lots of surprising interactions, but maybe not about more subtle elements. This is also one of the few games I know of that had a demo wall that you could get past. I'm pretty sure that's fixed now, but yeah, it's a fun meme. There are also some really nice reviews on this game, like so many WTF moments. The 3D disc does make you wonder if similar games that don't involve a 3D element count as a sausage-like. Like, I have this game on screen because it has the same kind of stickiness element as an Architect's Adventure, sort of. Like, if that counts, surely the other Snake game that released before the Sausage game has to count. Like, I remember it for being hard as well, although I think people other than me found it more difficult. Also, 4 years later, they released a primer version, which is intended to be easier. It costs $1 more than the original. Anyway, I'm very puzzled by that decision, but that also exists because people found the original game quite hard, I guess. Another game about sticking objects is Magnet Block, which the developer contacted me about the game, like, more than 1.5 years ago, and I just failed to find a way to put it in any video until now. I really wish that I could have done it sooner, because it takes this mechanic to an unbelievable extent, judging by others' reviews, like, and unfortunately, I've only got through the beginning. Yes, arguably, it's the most, it doesn't look like much game in terms of aesthetics. The level design is incredibly strong. This is a reviewer from a streamer who's, like, got 850 hours on the game. And the game is still getting various small updates. The trailer says like 79 levels, it's like over 100 by now. It must be said though, it's kind of funny how this element in Stephen's Sausage Roll, where if you lose, the reason you lost and a bunch of big text shows up on the screen, it's not like a game needs to copy it. But sometimes they do. It's kind of funny. I mean, again, Sausagelikes don't need to copy this visual element at all, but it's clearly inspired. I played the demo of this game, Please Be Kind to the Chickens. This title would not make you think that this is a puzzle game, probably, but it is. And it is a Sausage-like. It's so recent that I have pretty much no idea of the playtime. But there's a ton of worlds and what seems to be a ton of content. And it also seems to have the same similar display. There's also a different game called Push a Block. It is still coming soon, so I don't know anything about it, but it seems to be of this genre. There's also Stone Man's Adventure, which seems to be a game where you lay down stones behind you and then push them around. It seems to be a sort of short game, but definitely fits the genre. It's kind of funny how similar this is to an Architect's Adventure in some ways, considering the word adventure in the name, the partial sticky blocks mechanic, and the hub and the X's in the world are also kind of similar. I think Altered might also fit in this category, although it's a little bit more strange. The things that you do are mostly about changing how your character is like. But there are some elements of sticky blocks in there and pushing down buttons, but it's a lot less about one singular mechanic. A Slug's Dream also probably counts. I played the demo of it, and it's about moving blocks, but also half of the blocks are basically portals. So the game is also heavily about portaling, and of course there's a water layer as well. This Pontivus is another game by the same developer, and I've known about it, but I actually have not ever played it myself, come to think of it. It pretty much involves no block pushing, but instead you move around these islands, which have slightly different rules based on their color. I think maybe the surprising thing is that the game is procedurally generated, but in a way that people really compliment it, and it's one of those procedural generation things that actually create tight solutions, from what I hear about the game. There's this game called The Golem, which I've heard talked about a few times, but I have not personally played myself. It has a good reputation, and it's for sure a 2D block pushing game at least, but I don't actually know if it uses the third dimension, even though it does use it visually. But I thought I'd mention it here anyway. To tie it all back, there is actually a surprisingly lengthy game called Conveyor Confusion, all about these conveyor blocks, and by blocks, I actually do mean blocks, because this is a 3D game, an engine that's usually not even 3D, and it explores these mechanics of pushing around conveyors. The game is made in a modded version of PuzzleScript, which is a game engine that can make it easier to create these 2D puzzle games and can even create 3D as well with clever enough coding. And the way the coding works is much easier to make than a normal game engine. I've even created 2 games myself in PuzzleScript, and the way this ties all back is that the sausage guy made PuzzleScript. Chess Battle Advanced. Eventually I'll probably make a video about all the other mini games, a lot of them being PuzzleScript games that the sausage guy has made, as many of them would fit in the cursed block pushing category. There was also a fan expansion to the Conveyor Confusion game. This is not the same game. This is an expansion, although playing the original game first is highly recommended. So even though this is a solo project, obviously it can build off the previous collab, and it's by a creator who's made tons of other great 2D and sometimes 3D puzzle games. I have also gotten recommended Steven Miller's Shackle before, which is something I really wonder when I will get to. Some other puzzle games that are similar, not exactly 3D, I would like to shout out here. One of them is Fillets 2, which is maybe like the oldest game on the list. I think people recently don't know about it. So this is a game where you control various fish, and this involves a lot of object manipulation by carrying various different shapes and different types of objects. My opinion of this game is very high. Gameplay-wise, it has infinite undo. There's even save states at the bottom here, and many new mechanics and players are introduced. The game even has custom support, though I don't know if anyone back then has them because I don't think the forums are up anymore. I think the dialogue is amazing. It has this X-Files joke parody plot. They are self-aware characters as well.
Another room. The fish wagon looked much smaller from the outside.
Don't worry about it. It's just a tutorial. It has to be this long so we can explain everything.
There's even a puzzle in the ice puzzle section, where one of the fish is doing another task in the story, so the other one makes a puzzle for you to pass the time. Such a dumb justification.
Hello. While Flounder is trying to call for help, I've collected some rocks, ice, and seaweed, and made a puzzle for you. I hope you like it. Maybe I made the puzzle too dangerous. I designed a special puzzle just for you, and this is the thanks I get?
I have to say, though, that there are some times where the same dialogue plays, and I wish it didn't do that. There's like a mode to lower chit-chat, but it doesn't work like that. There's also some dated references, but sometimes you have to post cringe to get that fat aw payout. Apart from that, I barely have any other complaints. I just think this game deserves to be more known as a puzzle game classic. Also about the levels being big, yeah, they get big. The final game I'd like to show, even though it definitely isn't really that 3D in terms of vertical layering, is Bean and Nothingness, a very large puzzle game. I can't believe it's $12 considering some of the other games on the list that don't have as much playtime as this one. I have completed only like half of the game myself, although it is a run where I try to 100% every world. The hub world has a lot of lore put into it. Not that I'm in the target audience, but it is nice to see. The two main mechanics of this game is that each world introduces a new type of monster, which has certain abilities, this orange dino. But the bottom left of the screen also shows recipes that you can use to create the monsters. And they're not always the same every level. And the recipes use these beans, which you can pick up. So now I can see that I have a yellow bean in my inventory, which I can place down and then aim at it. Then use my wand, which can be shot at any of the 4 directions. You can also hold shift to only change your facing direction. But yeah, you turn the beans into monsters. In this case, this one explodes when something touches it. Monsters also drop their beans on death, so I can do this, pushing that essentially bomb monster into here, and it's dropped its recipe of 3 red beans. So I can use that to create a new one of these monsters and get to the goal. So that's a very simple puzzle there. There are puzzles that range to like 5 difficulty. It shows a lot of clever interactions and mechanics between monsters, as well as puzzles based on this economy of beans. Puzzles even have save state systems, automatic replays, and custom workshop levels. I guess you could argue whether this game is really a sausage-like, because it does have the long playtime and the depth and puzzle design, but the monsters and bean recipes are definitely not very physical, in the same way Stephen's Sausage Roll was. But the game explores its monsters incredibly thoroughly, which feels very sausage-like. Anyway, I'm glad I got to finish making this video. It's been a topic I've wanted to talk about for a long time, but compiling all the footage together is hard. Anyway, bye.